Welcome back to another episode of NBA by Jellyman, episode 20. Wednesday, February the 22nd. In today's episode, we've got the All-Star break review, overview, and then obviously the second half of the season preview, NBA player and team consistencies, and then week 19 preview. And we've done our stats for obviously Friday's games as well, so we can go into a bit about that. There's not a lot of markets out at the moment currently, so we're going to have to do the best we can with what we've got available. That'll be towards the back end, but we'll crack straight into it with the All-Star break review. So how we're sort of going to run this is we've got screenshots from ESPN of what they can give us essentially in terms of Eastern Conference, Western Conference standings, the point differential, rebounds, offensive leaders, field goal percentage, defensive leaders, rebounds, blocks, offensive leaders, defensive leaders again, assists, blocks, and then also something called a BPI, which is Basketball Power Index, which sort of measures the true strength on a net point scale. So expected point margin versus average opponent on neutral court. So what that means is essentially like when the LA Clippers play the Houston Rockets, they're obviously going to smash them, and it's obviously how they get their lines and everything like that. So we're going to go through a bit about that, what teams rank high with a bad record and what teams rank lower with a good record / could turn around in the back end of the season as well. But we'll crack into it. Obviously, topic one, Eastern Conference with the Boston Celtics leading out front, 42-17. We'll sort of touch base on them in our next sort of coverage of our deep dive with teams with a shot this season as well. So that's a shot to win the championship, go well towards the back end of the season, obviously make the playoffs, do well in the playoffs, etc., etc. But 1 through to 8 or 1 through to 10 in the Eastern Conference at the moment, the Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, Cavs, Nets, Knicks, Heat, Hawks, Wizards, Raptors. And then the Bulls and Pacers just sit outside of that. They're 2 games out of that 10th position. But it's mainly the sort of first 4 teams there. The Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, Cavs, which we've got listed down as being potential championship threats this season. The Nets without a main dominant person, they're almost there because of where Durant got them to earlier in the season, but they've still got a good lineup and they'll still win some games. They'll most likely play playoffs. The Knicks and the Heat, they will juggle that 6th and 7th position, I think. The Hawks are still under 500 at 29-30. They've shown some consistency of late, but then they sort of backed off towards near the All-Star break and ended up being 4 of 6 from the last 10. And then the Wizards and the Raptors rounded out there. So I think the top 8, from my perspective, is set. So that 8th seed being the Hawks. The only juggle that might happen is between that 5, 6, and 7 spot with the Heat, Knicks, and the Nets. Moving into the Western Conference where it is a lot closer. 1 through to 12 or 1 through to 13 even is all possible. So the Nuggets, Grizzlies, Kings, Clippers, Suns, Mavericks, that's your top 6. Within those play-in spots, the Pelicans, Timberwolves, Warriors, and Thunder. And then the Jazz, Blazers, and Lakers 11th, 12th, and 13th. Obviously, the Lakers have bolstered their lineup. They could potentially make a good run there. But they play a lot of Western Conference teams, so they've got to beat a lot of people within their conference to come out or make the play-in ultimately. And I think it was something like that to win 15 of their last 24 games as well. But teams with the shot there, you go 1 through to 6, they're all with a chance. The Kings being the only one who's high up in that ranking that we don't think is going to make a big impact in playoffs, but at least they'll get there. It'll be positive for them in years to come. Moving into the top 5 teams, the point differential, so that's obviously teams who win and win well. The Boston Celtics are plus 6.1 at the moment. The Cavs are plus 5.6. The Nuggets are plus 4.3 and the Grizzlies plus 3.9. The Sixers plus 3.8. So they're 5 teams you look at their lines on a consistent basis, as well as obviously their head-to-heads. Rebounds, the Bucks 49. The Bucks, Grizzlies, Knicks, Rockets, and Lakers there. The Rockets being in there because they get up a lot of shots, which means the other team gets up a lot of shots as well, going back the other way. The Knicks there because they've sort of upped their defense of late. The Grizzlies play good defense as well. The Bucks are obviously nearly number 1 in the league in defense. The Lakers are a surprise in there as well, but it's because they get up a lot of shots, very similar to the Rockets. Offensive leaders, so teams that are scoring a lot of points, the Kings at 119.5. The Warriors, second. Celtics, third. OKC Thunder, and the Jazz are fifth. So all teams that can score the ball. Not only that, the opposition team can score the ball against them. So looking at total points over, player points over for those teams as well. Field goal percentage, so the Denver Nuggets at 51%, the Nets at 50, Kings at 49, Timberwolves at 49, and the Cavs at 48.9 there. So all teams that score consistently. Strangely about the Cavs and also the Timberwolves is they get up a lot less shots than the teams above them. The defensive leaders, so points allowed, so the Cavs, Heat, Sixers, Clippers, and the Suns. The Cavs and the Heat are the only teams under 110 points per game, allowed that is, and then the Sixers, Clippers, and Suns are all at 110 and 111 plus points per game. Blocks, so the Nets lead that category with 6.5, obviously a lot of them through Claxton, and even Ben Simmons when he is on the court, when he's out of foul trouble, playing good defense there. The Grizzlies are second, obviously Jaren Jackson Jr. averages 3.3 of those, and then when they have Steven Adams in there as well, his length definitely helps. Indiana Pacers 5.8, which means a lot are coming through Miles Turner. The Wizards length with Kuzma and also Porzingis at the ring, and then the Celtics 5.3, so 5 good defensive teams there. Offensive leaders, so you got Luka leading the league in scoring at 33.3 points, Embiid 33.1, Giannis 31.8, will miss some time though, Lillard 31.4, and SGA 30.8. So they're your top 5 scorers in the league, always looking for those guys to score 30 plus points against teams that allow them to score the ball. Defensive leaders, rebounds, so 12.3 for Domantas Sabonis. Giannis has 12.2. Gobert 11.6, but a quiet season this season. Not many minutes, or not as many minutes as usually plays. Steven Adams 11.5 and Vooch 11.5 as well there. So some impressive numbers from those guys. Assists, James Harden now leading the league, 10.8 assists per game. Trae Young 10.3. Jokic 10.1, Halliburton 10.1, and then Ja Morant 8.3 there. We've already sort of mentioned the blocks guys, but Jaren Jackson Jr. 3.3, Claxton 2.6, Brook Lopez 2.4, Miles Turner 2.3, and Kessler from Utah 2.1. Jumping into the BPI that we talked about, this is actually quite an interesting topic to jump into. Leading the league in BPI at 8.5. Don't exactly know what that specifically means, but obviously that is your higher ranked teams. So the Boston Celtics, 42 and 17 this season, 8.5. They top the list. Second is actually the LA Clippers. They're 33 and 28 this season. They're at 8.2, so only just behind the Celtics. So taking all that into account, they should rise towards the back end of the season, especially with some of the additions they've added to their team. Next in line is the Milwaukee Bucks, who are actually even with the New York Knicks at 7.1. The Bucks are obviously 41 and 17. The Knicks are 33 and 27. Next behind them is the Cavs, and then Nuggets, then the Lakers. So the interesting one there is the Lakers. They're obviously at 27 and 32, but highly rated at 5.8. They're actually above the Sixers, the Grizzlies, and the Warriors. Now the Warriors are down at 4.0. They're 29 and 29, so at 500. And then below them is the Heat, Mavericks, Raptors, Suns, Nets. So all around the same amount of number there. But essentially what that all means is factoring all teams' points, rebounds, assists, how strong their team is, how long they've been together, all that sort of jazz is actually matched into that. And that's how they get that ranking there. Now the projections for the end of the season. The Boston Celtics are looking at 58-24. Obviously 100% making the playoffs, winning their division 96.9%. The Milwaukee Bucks pictured to win another 15 games, finish 56 and 25. Obviously, this is all factoring in that BPI once again, teams they play, home, away, all that sort of jazz. The Nuggets 55 and 26. The Sixers 51 and 30. The Cavaliers 51 and 30. The Grizzlies 49 and 32. Now, the interesting one there is the Clippers at 47 and 34. So obviously, that means they're going to win another 14 games out of a potential 20 games. So 14 of 20 on the back end stretch is what the the numbers are telling us. Then there's the Nets, the Knicks, and the Heat. 47-34, 46-35, 44-37. Now they've got the Lakers down here at 42 and 40, which means they're a 64% chance of making the playoffs, which is quite interesting. And their top six, they're only 26%. So that's mainly making the play-in game there. So that's quite an interesting percentage. And they've got the Warriors as well, 42 and 40. So the Warriors and Lakers right next to one another. And that actually makes up your top 16. Yes, it does. Had to double check that one. But that's a bit about, I guess, going into, the projections for playoffs, BPI, all that sort of jazz. Obviously, reach out if you have any questions about that, but it's obviously quite an interesting topic. Feel free to go into ESPN as well and have a look. Last but not least, just All-Star break review. We'll have a look at the team-by-team injuries. So at the moment, Atlanta Hawks just have John Collins in the concussion protocol. He will likely come out of that, hopefully when they begin playing again. The Celtics, they've listed day-to-day as just Williams Muscala. They'll be back in time for their first game. The Charlotte Hornets still have Oubre out and Cody Martin out. Terry Rozier listed as day-to-day. The Bulls, they've listed Caruso, Dragic, and Jones Jr. all as day-to-day, which means they should be good coming out of the All-Star break. Same as the Cavaliers, Rubio and Usman, both listed as day-to-day. For the Dallas Mavericks, Irving and Hardaway Jr. both listed as day-to-day. Maxi Kleber won't play as of yet, and Davis Bertans is still out as well. The Denver Nuggets, Gordon's still out with a rib injury, and it mentions he's up in the air for Thursday's game against the Cavs. Reggie Jackson day-to-day, most likely going to clear the health protocols that they've got to go through. For the Detroit Pistons, Bagley, Noel, and Cunningham are all still out. Obviously, Cunningham out for the season. Duran won't. He's still got an ankle injury, but likely will be back after the All-Star break. Wiggins for the Warriors listed as day-to-day, but likely back in. Curry's still out, and he'll be out throughout the All-Star break, and then he's going to miss a few more contests after that. Peyton II is still out for quite a while after, uncovering his injury that he had. And Iguodala is still out as well. The Rockets, Green and Porter Jr. are both still out at the moment. For the Pacers, no one to report there. The Lakers, they've still listed LeBron as day-to-day, but he will likely play. The Grizzlies still are without Steven Adams. The Miami Heat still without Kyle Lowry. They're looking at the end of February for him. Oladipo still out as well, and Tyler Hero listed as day-to-day. For the Bucks, they've listed Giannis as day-to-day yesterday, which is positive, obviously with that sprained wrist, but I'd say they keep him out a little bit longer, make sure he's okay. Bobby Portis is still out, and Crowder is still out as well. Timberwolves, Cat is still out. They've mentioned here 10 to 15 games of the season, so that means he'll come back maybe start to middle of March, which is positive signs there. The Pelicans, the one guy we want to talk about is Zion. He did suffer a setback, which means some more weeks on the sidelines. Hopefully he can get back towards the end of March when they're making a run for it. The Knicks, Mitchell Robinson is still out with a thumb injury. No one to report for OKC, same as Magic, same as the Sixers. The Suns, KD, still out Thursday, and hopefully will return soon after the All-Star break. It's listed here. Payne and Shamet are both still out as well. For the Blazers, Nurkic, Winslow is still out, listed as day-to-day as Jeremy Grant, and it's got Anthony Simons is out as well. So struggle streak for the Blazers at the moment with a few injuries. Look for Dame Lillard's points to be over, and also his triple-double numbers his rebound numbers to be up, which means his triple-doubles are possible as well. For the Toronto Raptors, they're without OG still, and Trent Jr. and Young are both listed as day-to-day and should be good to go. And then the Jazz have listed Sexton, Markkanen, and Gay as day-to-day, most likely to return after the All-Star break. But that is a good breakdown into, the All-Star break, reviewing it, previewing it, the second half of the season, and sort of getting ready to launch. Topic 2, we deep dive into teams with a shot this season. So just quickly covering off, who we think has a shot in the East and West, some notable mentions and everything like that. First, we'll start in the East. So obviously, the Celtics, Bucks, Sixers, and Cavs. The Boston Celtics, watching a few of their games prior to the All-Star break. Super impressive with both Tatum and Brown out. They were still able to get wins against good sides. They beat the Sixers quite comfortably without Brown. and also Tatum going out as well, having a very average game, which meant they've got depth there throughout that whole side. If you ask me, they're our favourite at the moment to come out of the East. Only reason being is because the Milwaukee Bucks can't stay healthy. By healthy, we mean Portis back, Giannis healthy and ready and playing consistent basketball, not going out for 1 or 2 games here and there. Holiday, the same sort of thing. He's been good, but Middleton as well, he's resting from the back, but he's still on a minutes restriction. So the other reason why the Celtics are favourite is because the Bucks can't have all their guys, their main 3 guys, as well as their depth on the court at all times. The Sixers, they're there as well. They've got the side to do it, but they lapse in a lot of these, and they lapse in a lot of the games. They won 20 of 25 towards the back end of that All-Star break, but it's in those big games against the Celtics where they should have won against the larger teams that they really should be beating. The Cavs are there as well. Their defense is superb, but our big question over them is, other than those 4 guys we mentioned, Allen, Mobley, Mitchell, and Garland, they've got some defensive nous there as well, but who else steps up throughout the depth? I mean, Rubio comes off the bench and he provides a spark. Obviously, Kevin Love was out of the rotation, now gone. But who provides that spark off the bench to come in and get them 20? Is it LeVert? But he hasn't been doing it consistently. So that's our big question about the Cavs. But all 4 of those teams can make a run and play some consistent basketball into the playoffs this season. Looking at the West now, so our 4 favourites to advance or do anything throughout the playoffs is the Nuggets, Grizzlies, the Suns have leaped into there, and the Clippers. The Nuggets are clear favourite to come out of the West at the moment, with how deep they are. But the same sort of thing as the Bucks. Can they get Gordon, Porter Jr., Murray, Jokic all on the court at the same time consistently? They're obviously out prior to the All-Star break. They only had 2 out of the 4 stars playing. They've got the depth there to cover it, but obviously come playoffs, it's really all about health and who is the healthiest team out there to win a championship. We've got the Memphis Grizzlies there as well. Same sort of boat. You had a few things come up about obviously Ja Morant being fine in the West and then losing to a lot of West teams, but they've got the side to do it, and they've just got to be healthy. Adams comes back hopefully in a few weeks' time, and that obviously bolsters their defense. But they've got the scoring through Morant, through Bane, off the bench as well, and then they've got the defense through Jackson Jr. and Brooks. So they're a well-rounded team and could also make a push in the playoffs. We've got the Phoenix Suns in there. They've got the 4-headed monster with Paul, Booker, KD when he comes back, and Ayton. And Ayton's been playing, and then they've also got they picked up Terrence Ross. He looked good in their first game. But they're another team that should be able to make a run with those 4 stars on the court. It just depends how they match up defensively. But if Booker buys in and then KD buys in, it means Paul and Ayton's job around that is a lot easier for them. So they're another team to make a run. And then last but not least, we've got the Clippers there. So obviously the team that will need to make a push throughout this back end of the season. But they've got the cattle to do it. Can they stay healthy? By healthy, we mean Kawhi and PG on the court at all times in the back end of the season. They've been playing super well, super consistent. They've got the depth there as well now with Eric Gordon, Russell Westbrook coming in. So they've got guys on the bench to cover and obviously defend all 5 positions. So they're another team that should make a push throughout the back end of the season. A couple of notable mentions. The LA Lakers, look, can they make a push? Can they not? Can they play consistent defense? We know they can score the ball. Can AD stay healthy? Can LeBron stay healthy? Can Russell fit in nicely like he has done in his first 3 or 4 games? Those are the questions that will be answered within probably the first week or 2 after the All-Star break. And then we'll get a better idea of can they make that push they need to. Golden State Warriors in a very similar boat. Can they make that push? Can they obviously keep Wiggins on the court along with Thompson and Poole and then wait for Curry to get back in and make that push when Curry comes back in? But it may be too late by then for them. The Dallas Mavericks are there as well. They've got Irving now, but they just don't have it defensively this season. What got them to the playoffs last season and throughout the playoffs was obviously Luka's phenomenal scoring, but it was their defense. It was all 5 guys buying in defensively, and if Luka wasn't buying in defensively, someone would cover his ass because he would have it on the other end. That's the question we sort of look at there. They lost a few games towards the back end of that All-Star break, mainly through defense. They were in the game offensively. They were scoring well. You've got Irving and Luka, two of the best scorers in the game. But can they go down the other end and defend well at the ring throughout 1 to 5? That's our biggest question there. Miami Heat, we know they can defend, but can they score the ball? Jimmy Butler has in and out games where he goes to score the ball, he gets to the line. Tyler Hero's in and out of the lineup consistently. Bam has his games where he can score 30 but then scores 10 the next game. He obviously gets a lot of rebounds as well. They bring in Kevin Love, but does that move the needle for them? It brings them a bit of a spark off the bench. They're the big questions we're sort of asking of the Heat at the moment, and we'll find out, similar to the Mavericks, the Warriors and the Lakers, within those first 2 weeks after the All-Star break. Are they, I guess, in for another maybe title run, or are they just going to be the 6th, 7th or 8th team in the playoffs that potentially lose 4-2 or 4-1 in that first round of the finals, or the playoffs, sorry. The New York Knicks as well, they're I guess, smoky in the East there. It's consistency for them. They can win 10 games and then lose 10 games. So when Brunson's playing well like he did closing out that All-Star break, as well as Julius Randle, if RJ Barrett can get 20 a night for them consistently and shoot the ball better than what he has been, that just gives them an extra threat. For them, their defense is sound. They're really good defensively. They have guys come off the bench that are also consistent, but it's finding those three guys and playing them having consistency from all three of them on a night-to-night basis, which will help them towards the back end of the season and hopefully drive them into a playoff series. Last but not least, the Nets, obviously a notable mention. They'll win a few games towards the back end of the season, but they won't be able to do much damage. We presume, happy to be wrong, but we presume they won't be able to do much damage towards round 1 of the playoffs, potentially filling in that 6th, 7th or 8th spot as well. That is the deep dive into teams of the shot this season. A couple of notable mentions. Topic 3 now is player and team consistencies, as we always do. So looking into, obviously, first comes first is the Atlanta Hawks. So we've got the Hawks, 223 plus total points in their last 11 games prior to the All-Star break. Then also Trae Young, 11 plus assists in his last 5 games, so passed the ball super well, and they're scoring the ball well, obviously through a lot of those passes from Trae Young. The Celtics, they've won 5 of their last 6 games. No stats to report on there. No consistencies coming into the All-Star break. Tatum was off and on. White was one of their most consistent players coming into that All-Star break with Jaylen Brown out. The Brooklyn Nets, Bridges, 21 plus points in 8 of his last 9 games. For the Hornets, LaMelo Ball, 23 plus points in 5 of his last 7 games and 10 plus assists in his last 4 games. Terry Rozier, 20 plus points in 8 of his last 10 games. For the Bulls, they've lost their last 6 games, sort of dropping out of those play-in spots. LaVine, 23 plus points in 5 of his last 6 games. Big Vooch, 12 plus rebounds in 6 of his last 7 games. DeRozan, 5 plus assists in his last 9 games. For the Cavaliers, they've won 7 in the last 8 games. Mitchell found his shot prior to the All-Star break, 29 plus points in his last 4 games. Also played very well in the All-Star game, although it was just a shootout and I guess a pretty layup line. Garland, 6 plus assists in 6 of his last 7 games. Allen, 17 plus points in 7 of his last 8 games. For the Mavericks, Irving, 24 plus points in his last 4 games there. For the Nuggets, they've won 4 of their last 5 games. Joker, 12 plus rebounds in his last 8. Murray, when he was healthy, 22 plus points in his last 6 games. And then Aaron Gordon, similar deal, 15 plus points in his last 6 games. Houston Rockets, they've lost their last 7 games. For the Clippers, Paul George found his stroke, 20 plus points in 5 of his last 6 games. For the Lakers, Davis being big on the boards, 10 plus rebounds in 6 of his last 7. For the Grizzlies, it's Ja Morant, shows 6 plus rebounds in his last 8 games and then 7 plus assists in his last 14 games. For the Timberwolves, Edwards closed out to the All-Star break super well, 30 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games there. For the Pelicans, Ingram found his stroke, 25 plus points in his last 6 games, and CJ chipped in 21 plus points in 4 of his last 5 games. For the Knicks, it was all about Brunson and Randle, 25 plus points in 9 of his last 10 games, and then Randle 22 plus points in 8 of his last 9 games. For the Suns, DeAndre Ayton been playing super well before the All-Star break. That mid-range game is absolutely killer, and not a lot of bigs can defend that. 20 plus points in 8 of his last 10. Chris Paul, 9 plus assists in 5 of his last 6 games, a lot of them going to DeAndre Ayton. The 76ers, Harden, 10 plus assists in 5 of his last 6 games, a lot of them going to Embiid. Portland Trail Blazers, Lillard, 33 plus points in his last 4 games. And for the Kings, Fox, 31 plus points in his last 4 games. Both of those players play off in the first couple of days after the All-Star break, so look at a scoring barrage from those two. For the San Antonio Spurs, Keldon Johnson, 21 plus points in his last 5 games. The Raptors, Siakam closed out to the All-Star break well, 26 plus points in his last 4 games. For the Utah Jazz, Clarkson, 20 plus points in 6 of his last 7 games. And Markkanen, 23 plus points in 8 of his last 10. Last but not least, Bradley Beal, 32 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games. We jump into topic 4, week 19 preview. So looking at how many games are on a specific day, our sort of games to watch on those days, as well as some potential insights into what we are thinking. But Friday sees 9 games. We're looking at the Nuggets at the Cavaliers on that day, Grizzlies at the Sixers, Thunder at the Jazz, Warriors at the Lakers, Blazers at the Kings. As we mentioned, the Blazers at the Kings, Fox 31 plus points in his last 4 games and Lillard 33 plus points. So both of those players potentially to put on a show there. The Warriors at the Lakers, we'll see how legitimate the Lakers are. The Warriors still haven't been able to play well away from home, so will be an interesting matchup there in LA. The Thunder at the Jazz, that perks our interest as well because they're on very similar. They've got very similar records. So that's why we're sort of looking at that one. The Grizzlies at the Sixers, it was a really interesting matchup, 117 to 112 last time Memphis' way. Obviously, Jar playing against Harden's always interesting. Then Embiid against the shot blocking of Jackson Jr. No Adams in that one though, which will be interesting to see how Joel Embiid goes to work. And the Nuggets at the Cavs is a really good matchup as well. I'm pretty sure the Cavs won the last matchup, which means it'll be a good one. Saturday sees 8 games. The Heat at the Bucks. Not sure if Giannis is going to play yet. The Nets at the Bulls. Obviously, hopefully another win there for the Nets. The Kings at the Clippers. So the Kings are obviously third, and as we mentioned about LAC, they're hopefully making a run towards the back end to get a better position in the standings, hopefully a home final. And the Kings is one of those sides. They're in third at the moment, but they're not showing up towards the back end of the season to improve their record much. Sunday, 7 games. The Pelicans at the Knicks is one to watch for us. Nuggets at the Grizzlies, and then the Celtics at the Sixers. Obviously, the Celtics are owning that matchup at the moment, and Philadelphia need to prove they can beat Boston towards the back end of this year. Monday sees 9 games. We've got the Suns at the Bucks, the Lakers at the Mavericks, Wolves at the Warriors, the Clippers at the Nuggets. Tuesday sees 4 games. The Heat at the Sixers, Celtics at the Knicks. And then Wednesday, 10 games, Bucks at Nets, Bulls at the Raptors, Nuggets at the Rockets, Lakers at the Grizzlies, Blazers at the Warriors. But we'll go on quickly now to a bit of an overview about tomorrow's games. So we've obviously got, first of all, is the Nuggets at the Cavs. So the Nuggets beat the Cavaliers 121 to 108 in Denver on the 7th of January. Garland had 21 and 8. There was no Donovan Mitchell in that matchup. Joker, he had 28, 15 and 10. Murray had 18 points. Obviously, the Nuggets and Cavs have both won 4 of their last 5 and 7 of their last 8 games. And then a bit of background. So Mitchell's actually scored 31 points, 17 points and 22 points in his last 3 matchups against Denver. And Garland's played quite well recently as well against Denver, 7 plus assists in his last 3 matchups. The Celtics and the Pacers. So the Pacers actually beat the Celtics 117 to 112 in Boston on the 22nd of December. Tatum had 41, Halliburton had 33 and 8. If my memory serves me right, the Pacers, it actually ended up being 30 points up at one stage. I'm pretty sure we actually got in their live line as it was about plus 20. We knew the Celtics would come back. So the Celtics, they've actually won 7 of the last 9 games. The Pacers have lost 9 of the last 11. Then the Pistons at the Magic. The Pistons have beaten the Magic both times this season on the 20th of the 10th and 29th of the 12th, but both games were in Detroit there, so it flips around to Orlando. And then the Grizzlies at the Sixers. The Grizzlies obviously beat the Sixers 117 to 109 in Memphis. Tobias Harris had 21 and 11. Brooks had 17 points. Jar had 28 points there. And Embiid had 35, 11 and 8, a near triple-double. that is all for this evening. A quick update about what we've got going on, or coming up, I should say. Obviously, we've got the NRL season kicking off soon. NBA kicks off this Friday. NRL, we plan to have a podcast out next Monday. Bit of a season preview podcast going into, I guess, in depth about each team. So how they went in the trials, obviously their record in 2022, any stats, their predicted squad, and anything else we see relevant for that squad and potentially how we see them going. And then on the Wednesday, we're going to have a round one preview, so NRL round one preview. And then going forward, we'll look to have on the Monday an AFL and NRL podcast separate. So about 20 to 25 minutes, maybe even less, just covering off the weekend's games, anything that happened that's exciting, any stats, any insights that we can feed into. And then on the Wednesday, we're planning to have 3 podcasts that roll out, both AFL, NRL, and NBA. So AFL will cover off the preview for the upcoming round, any stats, any consistencies that we see that could be valuable for the weekend of punting. And then NRL, same sort of thing, going through the team lineups, but also the stats and the insights for the upcoming week. And then NBA will be what NBA's been, but it'll be on the Wednesday now, just moving forward. That's a better sort of structure for the weekend. And then obviously Monday, Tuesday's games, and sort of rearing into the weekend of sports. But that is all for this evening. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. Good luck for the NBA resumption this Friday. Thank you.